In a development that has stunned royal watchers across the globe, there are now credible reports from deep within Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace circles that Prince William, long regarded as the most wounded and least forgiving figure in the entire Sussex saga, may finally be prepared to contemplate allowing his younger brother, Prince Harry, back into some form of royal life. But this is not a heartfelt, tear-streaked reconciliation driven by fraternal love. According to one of the most highly placed royal sources ever to speak on the record about the feud, William's apparent willingness to reopen the door comes with an enormous, non-negotiable condition: the permanent, total, and irreversible excision of their disgraced uncle, Prince Andrew, from any lingering association with the crown. In other words, the future of the British monarchy may be witnessing the coldest, most calculated piece of internal horse trading in living memory. Harry can come in from the California cold, but only if Andrew is thrown out into it forever. The man delivering this bombshell is royal commentator and insider Ian Pelham-Turner, who told the Daily Mirror that senior figures around both King Charles and the Prince of Wales are actively engaged in what he called a Bring Harry Back campaign. The phrase is striking because it implies something far more structured than vague hopes or back-channel texting. It suggests a deliberate, strategic initiative being discussed at the highest levels. What makes the timing so electrifying is that only months ago the accepted narrative, repeated by almost every serious royal correspondent, was that William had drawn an unbreakable red line. Sources close to the Prince of Wales had repeatedly briefed that the damage inflicted by the Oprah interview, the Netflix series, and above all the memoir Spare, in which Harry recounted a physical fight with his brother, had left wounds too raw ever to heal. One aide was widely quoted as saying William felt betrayed on every level and that reconciliation was not even on the table. Yet now we are being told that the table has been reset entirely, and the reason appears to be two simultaneous crises: King Charles's ongoing battle with cancer and the festering, never-ending scandal surrounding the Duke of York. Pelham-Turner put it with brutal clarity. My feeling at the moment is because of Charles's cancer diagnosis that all these negotiations, perhaps for example with Harry, have been accelerated. William has been placated about Harry coming back into the fold by getting rid of Andrew. The word placated is chilling in its implication. It does not speak of forgiveness, still less of longing for his little brother. It speaks of a deal. I will swallow the bitter pill of Harry's return if you finally lance the poison of Andrew. In palace terms, this is less a family reconciliation than a ruthless piece of human resource management. Andrew is a proven, immovable liability, stripped of titles, patronages, and military affiliations, yet still living rent-free at Royal Lodge, still occasionally photographed on Windsor grounds, still an eternal embarrassment who can never be rehabilitated. Harry, for all the pain he has inflicted, is at least theoretically salvageable, popular with sections of the public, photogenic, and capable of undertaking overseas tours that bolster the Commonwealth at a time when Republican sentiment is rising. So one toxic prince is traded for one estranged but potentially useful prince, and the monarchy attempts to draw a line under half a decade of self-inflicted chaos. The king's illness is clearly the catalyst that has forced everyone to stare at hard realities. When a monarch in his mid-70s is undergoing cancer treatment, thoughts inevitably turn to mortality, legacy, and continuity. Charles has never hidden his distress at the fracture between his two sons. Friends say it has been the greatest heartache of his reign so far. A father facing his own fragility wants, above all, to see his boys in the same room without Arctic silence. More practically, a slimmed-down monarchy already struggling with an overworked core of William, Catherine, and Edward and Sophie. Another pair of hands, even part-time ones based in California, suddenly looks attractive. Yet no one should imagine this would resemble the old days. Harry is not being invited to pack up Montecito, reclaim Frogmore Cottage, and resume life as a full-time working royal beside William and Catherine. What is being tentatively discussed, according to insiders, is a carefully limited, heavily lawyered arrangement whereby Harry might undertake a small number of overseas engagements each year, almost certainly without Meghan, and always on the clear understanding that he no longer speaks for the institution in any critical or personal capacity. In short, Harry would be welcomed back not as the prodigal son but as a cautiously repatriated asset, on strict probation. To appreciate just how far the royal landscape has shifted, it is worth remembering the depth of the abyss from which this tentative bridge is being built. William and Harry were once the closest of brothers, bound by the shared trauma of losing their mother at young and impressionable ages. They walked together behind Diana's coffin, launched the Invictus Games together, created the Heads Together mental health initiative together. When William married Catherine in 2011, Harry was best man and delivered a warm, jokey speech. When Harry announced his engagement to Meghan in 2017, William issued a statement saying he was thrilled and looked forward to welcoming her into the family. Then came the Oprah interview in March 2021, with its devastating claims about royal racism and lack of support, followed by the Netflix docuseries and, worst of all, Spare in January 2023. The physical fight Harry described, William allegedly grabbing him by the collar and knocking him into a dog bowl, became the image that defined their rupture for millions. Royal sources said William could barely bring himself to say his brother's name. Since then, their few public encounters at the late Queen's funeral, the coronation, and the Diana statue unveiling have been exercises in frosty choreography. No eye contact, no lingering, no photographs of the two brothers together. Body language experts have made whole careers out of freeze-framing the distance between them. Against that backdrop, the idea that William is now prepared to contemplate even a limited Harry return feels almost surreal, yet the Andrew factor appears to be the key that has unlocked the deadlock. By finally resolving the Andrew problem once and for all, evicting him from Royal Lodge if necessary, stripping away the last vestiges of official recognition, the palace can present Harry's re-engagement not as reward for bad behavior, but as pragmatic necessity. One embarrassment removed, one potential asset cautiously readmitted, balance restored. Public reaction has been as polarized as ever on social media. Some royal fans have wept with joy at the thought that Diana's boys might yet heal, insisting that blood is thicker than books, and that the king's illness should trump pride. Others are incandescent, arguing that Harry has monetized the monarchy's private pain and should never be allowed near it again. What happens next is impossible to predict with certainty. Sources emphasize that talks are genuine but embryonic. Nothing is agreed, and everything could still collapse. Harry would have to want this limited role, something far removed from the autonomy he has fought for in California. Meghan's position remains the great unknown, and William would have to convince himself that the strategic gain outweighs the emotional cost. Yet if King Charles's illness continues to cast its long shadow, and if Andrew can at last be fully and finally severed, then the unthinkable may just become possible. A House of Windsor that quietly closes one disastrous chapter by cautiously reopening another, whether that constitutes healing, or merely the most pragmatic of ceasefires, only time will tell. But for the first time in years, the door that everyone assumed had been welded shut appears to have been nudged, very slightly, ajar.